Beautiful friends, it is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, and it is time to vibe with your tribe and feed your prediction addiction as we review the craziness over the past week, the incoming energies, along with the potential events and predictions that are on our doorsteps. The past week, we saw my prediction of cyber attacks being fulfilled in Australia, when multiple cyber attacks in Australia to their Australian Super, which is the nation's largest retirement fund, taking thousands of dollars from people's accounts and from their retirement accounts. Was it an inside job? Remember, Spirit did tell us that there was going to be banking and financial cyber attacks. Is this just the start of it? Likely it is, and there is more to come. And who else was hit in the past week? Because there were actually multiple cyber attacks all throughout the globe over the past week. And we're now seeing the continuous flooding events taking place across the globe, with floodwaters in the state of Kentucky, which are responsible for sweeping away a young boy. We have floods in Australia that are now claiming at least 140,000 cattle in their cattle country. And it seems like the past few days have been quite quiet, though, when it comes to the earthquake activity. Interesting enough, while we still see these major floods and major tornadoes with record-breaking events happening all across the globe, is this going to ease up anytime soon? Or is this a sign of something much more to come? We have the WW3 tariff conflict that's begun, sending markets plunging once again to record lows. Not just here in the United States either. Taiwan having their worst market since 1990. Japan struggling, and many others. And of course, many others are unfortunately going to follow with these struggles with the economy. So how long is this going to last, and how is it all going to pan out with the tariffs? Similar events did play out prior to the previous world conflicts. If you know what I'm talking about, WW2, tariffs, and all these problems. Does that mean that we're heading in that direction? I surely hope not. Or is peace finally going to prevail? Are they going to give peace a chance? They really should. Or is this tariff, I said tarot, tariff conflict brings positive change? Could it? Is it in the cards? Speaking of tarot, we're going to look at that today. And remember, I mentioned coming attacks on religious leaders and church officials, which sadly became a reality in northeast Kansas when a priest was pow-powed. Hunted down and pow-powed. Unfortunately, a very sad and tragic event. And apparently there's a bunch of attacks going on all over the globe against Christians and mostly Catholics. Why? What's going on with that? Is the devil getting desperate? I bet he is. Also today, the Justin Bieber-Wendy Williams connection and what that may mean in their coming fate. The insane UFO crash and a battle between aliens and the CIA released in CIA documents. Hundreds of thousands of people are gathering in protest once again over the past weekend. Klaus Schwab is out now, completely. But why exactly? You're going to be surprised, or maybe not so surprised, as to the investigation that was launched against Klaus and his WEF friends, mainly Klaus. All this, and we also have the huge fire that broke out in Paris, as I seen in previous visions. New predictions revolved around the coming Easter holiday, the George Bush family. Yeah, the George Bush Mafia is more like it. The modern-day Hurricane Katrina. What's that mean? Well, we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more, friends. So get that tea kettle ready, friends. This is episode number 161 of Tuesday's Tittle Tea Time, baby. So, friends, have you been feeling a little foggy over the weekend? Having a hard time focusing? Oh, I was right there with you. Have you had more emotions rising to the surface over the weekend? Perhaps lots of focus on your relationships, on top of maybe getting tired of where you may be in your life. and feeling like you're really ready for some change. Well, friends, change is on your doorstep. Time to open up the door because the universe is knocking and welcoming us all to this new paradigm where these wild energies continue to flow in. And since we stepped into the month of April, and really legitimately since we stepped into 2025, and it really feels like things aren't going to be easing up anytime soon, or at least until we step into the month of May, which will be a much lighter month. We're going to need that little break, a little quiet before these summer storms come rolling in. And we are truly being asked right now by the universe, some perhaps being forced by the universe, to look really, really deeply within yourself, while also looking deeply at our lives and every little aspect of our lives. That's part of that 4 vibration we're in this month. And the things that have been blocking you, they're becoming much more apparent, much more clear. Whether they be habits, whether they be patterns, addictions, and so forth. And you may even be looking really closer at what you're bringing into the world, what you're offering to the world, whether it's your business, whether it's your career, and of course, with the current alignments, your relationships as well. Big focus on that. And you may love doing what you do when it comes to business, career, and even your relationships, but suddenly, maybe you don't like doing it the way you're doing it. And maybe who you're doing it for or doing it with. And now you, in turn, may be feeling stuck. Maybe even feeling that you're sinking in the quicksand. But, friends, I'm here to inform you that you are neither sinking and you are not stuck in the swamp. You may be crossing the swamp, sure. We're all crossing the swamp, pulling one foot out of the mud and throwing it forward and pulling the other one out. But at least we're moving forward, 1 foot at a time. And you're getting across, and when you do get across that swamp, something amazing is going to be awaiting for all of us on the other side. A new beach, a tropical one, if that's what you're looking for. And this is really, right now, a stationary period in our lives, a time of reflection, a time to really open up, tap into our heart energy, and allow the universe to guide you, because the universe has the answers that you're seeking. And all those answers lie within us all. So be patient. We are still under that Mercury influence, even though it's the post-shadow now as of today. It can still have a little of an effect on delays, miscommunications, and even things can still break down on us. Overall, I mean, it's really lightening up, though. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of that going on. And the Mercury energy now begins to not only just lighten up, it brings in better communications and things start to flow a little better. A little. Till we get to the end of the month when we're out of this shadow completely, which I don't think is till like the 26th. Yeah, it's the very end of the month. I know that. Probably around the 25th, 26th. And it's only just yesterday, April 7th, and actually it's April 7th when I'm recording this. I'm recording this on Monday, April 7th from beautiful Sedona, Arizona, and it's beautiful and gorgeous outside right now. That's why I'm recording it today, because it takes forever to process, and I want it to process so that I can enjoy the warm, gorgeous weather tomorrow while it uploads onto the platforms. So it was actually yesterday, April 7th, that Mercury, which is today, stationed direct in Pisces. And this is a sure sign that this fog, especially the fog over the past weekend, is finally beginning to lift. Hallelujah. Especially the fog over the weekend. And I certainly felt it. Again, I'm sure you did too. And we begin to now find more emotional clarity. That's what this period is now that we're stepped into as of today. More emotional clarity, a little bit more with communications opening up on a more positive vibration. Instead of all the miscommunications and people twisting things you say. They do that a lot here on YouTube. In the comments, twist things I say. Especially during Mercury, mainly during Mercury retrograde, actually. Also yesterday, we had Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces, which continues to put focus on bringing heart matters to the surface when it comes to relationships, finances, soul truth. It's all about what balances and aligns with your soul truth, friends, especially with this alignment as of yesterday. This is a wonderful time, an amazing time to commit to long-term healing and to your own spiritual growth. Remember, this whole year, the theme is actually over the next few years, next 14 years, I believe, to be exact, is all about spiritual growth. And Venus is going to make another move on Saturday the 12th when she goes direct into Pisces. And this is going to really help to lift the veil when it comes to love, money. Your creativity is going to really begin to flow forward with this whole fresh understanding and the energy of forgiveness, something that definitely needs to be weaved in. We're going to need that as the month comes to a close anyway. And on the same day, Saturday, April 12th, we have the powerful full moon, which is going to ring in the sign of Libra. Libras. I have a lot of Libra friends. Libras, why are you so good at telling everybody else what to do? But God forbid you don't like anybody telling you what to do. And Libras aren't happy unless they're really, truly in service to others. Most of my Libra friends work in the medical community, or Libra friend that owns heating, air conditioning company, and that's true Libra, in service to others and, looking for that balance. So the full moon in Libra coming up, this is going to put a spotlight on the justice system and on balance, because we know the symbol of Libra is the justice symbol and the scales. And that's what's going to be the highlight over the next few weeks once this full moon kicks in. And this full moon energy could really bring in actually potential peace talks, although part of me really strongly feels that they're not going to work out and they may be temporary, but I still don't feel like peace is coming for quite some time, unfortunately. It's just temporary. Just like I showed you the up and down roller coaster ride of the economy. It's going to be the same way with peace and conflict. Ups and downs, sudden twists and turns. It's how it's all going this year. So the full moon energy could bring peace talks. It's definitely going to focus on the justice system and justice overall, along with more folks, of course, stepping into their power. Something we need. More people stepping into their power, joining movements and gathering in even larger protests. Larger than the ones that we have been seeing over the past few weeks. In the past month. Not just, again, in the United States, but all over the globe. These protests are happening, friends, all over the globe. And it's going to be all about fairness when this full moon kicks in. All about fairness and what truly is for the good of all. And this is going to bring on some unfortunate periods of chaos. I had this recent vision of protests going sour, unfortunately, turning into something more like riot situations. Saw, the Molotov cocktails and had all those visions that reminded me sort of 2020 and what happened back then in the United States. I'm not saying this is in the United States. I believe this is going to hit other places like Paris and other countries as well. The United Kingdom. And even we see protests breaking out in Japan and in other countries. And I feel this is going to be, especially when we get closer to June and July, that's when we're going to see the protests going sour. The summer months. Just like 2020. Something about that energy in July. Especially this year when we're in that second energy shift, retrograde, all kinds of stuff happening in July, friends. Remember, Spirit warns us 3 months. I give you 3 months out of the year most intense. March, July, November. And already March has been the most intense month so far this year. So for now, take advantage of these incoming energies and alignments in the weekend's upcoming full moon in Libra. And you can do so by letting go of any toxic connections and restore harmony wherever possible in your life. Remember to practice forgiveness, balance, and realignment, especially in love and when it comes to community. Use the full moon energy to assist you in identifying and breaking negative patterns, negative habits, or anything else that you clearly see as a blockage that's preventing you from stepping out of those swamp waters. Full moon is all about helping make that happen. And one last reminder, we are resonating still in the 4 vibration in the month of April. And the 4 is all about doing the work, being willing to do the work, whatever that work may be, putting some elbow grease into your life. And remember, your thoughts and words, they are the blueprints to your future. The 4 vibration is asking you, what is it that you want to build? What is it that you want in the future? Not even what you want, but where are you in the future? Tell universe, and universe is going to provide you the transportation to help you reach that future place. Just give universe a call, friends. Universe is listening. Beautiful friends, beautiful tribe, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Joseph Tittel, spiritual medium, aka Spiritman JT. Always here to bring you love, light, truth, predictions, and prophecy. And if you're new here, you want to vibe with our awesome, amazing tribe, you want accurate predictions, prophecy, and truth, Smash that subscribe, the bell and all so that you get notifications. Down below, you'll find the link to all my social media, including the Subscribe Star. Awaken your spirit community of supporters. Those supporters, along with supporters of this channel and contributors to this channel, help make this free content possible for everybody else, and I thank you with infinite love and gratitude. Be sure to sign up for the free newsletter below so you don't ever miss content and you know what's going on, upcoming, whatever. Just sign up. It's free. Make sure when you do sign up, you will get a confirmation email. Check your spam folders. You have to confirm to that email. And the best way to sign up is not on the website, but directly below. Open up the newsletter, click the link up top, and subscribe that way. And again, make sure that you confirm your email. And then put that email address in your contacts folder to ensure you get it at the beginning of every month, or usually sometimes the end of the month. Depends, but every month you'll know what's going on. Other than that, be aware one other thing is of fake profiles on social media platforms that message you on private messengers attempting to make you believe that it's me. It's not me. Turn those profiles in immediately, friends, and let us move on to episode 161 of Tuesday's Tittle Tea Time, because we got a lot to talk about. Cyber attacks is one of this week's hot topics, as we see my past prediction around cyber attacks happening in April being fulfilled for our friends down under in Australia, when multiple cyber attacks on the Australian Super, which is the nation's largest retirement fund, taking thousands of dollars from people's bank accounts. Thousands. Multiple large super funds have been targeted in suspected cyber attacks that led to some members losing several $1,000s in their retirement packages. A sad case indeed. So was this an inside job? Remember, Spirit told us that there would be banking, cyber attacks on banking and financial systems. And when I tapped into Spirit to get clarity on this Australian cyber attack this past week, I was actually surprised to instantly hear China hackers. That's what Spirit said. China hackers. Not sure exactly why China would want to do that or do such a thing, or the hackers, maybe to steal the money. Who knows? I don't really think they need the money so much. Or are they just testing the waters? Testing the waters and attempting to negatively affect the economy in Australia? Probably a combination of all the above, friends. And I cannot help but to feel that the WEF, the W, the E, and the F, in their agenda, their agenda, we talked about it many times, is somehow behind this. Because if you remember, it was Klaus Schwab who warned us of their plan. They just tell us by warning us that this could happen, and all of a sudden it happens. And this is what Klaus had to say.
But still, pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
After the cyber attack, you will eat the bugs. You will, says Klaus. You will. And speaking of Klaus Schwab, remember last year he stepped down from his position at the WEF? And this just in, friends. He stepped down to a lower position, but he didn't step down completely. But now Klaus will be stepping down completely after an investigation has been launched for his case of discrimination. No surprise there, friends. No surprise there. So is this the collapsing of structures that Spirit showed us going back a long time ago? Spirit talked about this. I was just talking about that with a friend this past weekend. saying, 30 years ago we thought this was all going to happen, and now it's all happening. It's about time. But we knew this 30 years ago. Well, me and my group of closies in the spiritual community. And now all these structures are collapsing. And we can only hope that it will eventually also help to collapse that UN. Because we know the UN's agenda with the N and the W and the order that follows. So back to the cyber attacks. Because there have been many, actually. Just not being shown to us in mainstream, of course. There was a large cyber attack that took place on the railway system in the Ukraine, in which, of course, Russia was blamed. Maybe they had help from China and the China hackers. Who knows? But remember what I said about delays and attacks around travel, including railways in April and going back to March in the whole retrograde cycle. These cyber attacks are mild in comparison to those that are yet to have arrived. And I continue to have visions and see a whole city going into the darkness. And I'm not sure where, but I feel like this is very much cyber attack related. I also feel like some type of huge cyber attack is going to be hitting India and the folks up there in Canada. Be prepared. Especially Canada with the banking system, Spirit just whispered in my ear. So be aware, Canadian friends, and get that stuff wrapped up into something physical. So when the fake cash is no longer available, you have something physical to back it up with. All this while the President DT, he just fired the head of cybersecurity. Allegedly, based on his non-loyalty to the president. But again, who knows? Regardless of whatever excuse they may give us. Eye on whoever it is that replaces this guy. And what about all those that were actually fired alongside of the cybersecurity guy? They were all fired not to be replaced. Not to be replaced. Seems to me like our cybersecurity here in the United States just got very, very weak. Giving them a potential window or back doorway to get in. Let's hope not. And always remember, and always a good reminder here with this topic, to be mindful. Be very mindful of potential long-term power outages. They're going to come eventually. Maybe not this year, but between now and 2031, it's on. We are in that window of time. Always, of course, have some cash on hand and always be prepared and never scared. Moving on to hot topic number 2, the craziness of Mother Nature, reaping havoc upon our planet. And we warned in the April's forecast that the water was going to be a huge focus this month, and not even just this month, but the entire year 2025. Big year of water. It was in my forecast for 2025, and now we're seeing these continuous record-breaking flooding events across the globe, with floodwaters ripping through 11 states here in the United States, floodwaters in Tennessee, calling for rescue efforts as folks you see stuck in their cars trying to get out, or looks like they were trying to get in, who knows. And already these floods have unalived over a dozen folks, from Ohio all the way to footage coming out of Kentucky once again, who already dealt with floods weeks ago. This time in Kentucky, the flash floodwaters, swept away a little boy, unfortunately, adding to that over a dozen taken by Mother Nature's wrath. Floods in Illinois, and again, a total of 11 states. Not to mention the dozens of massive tornado systems that just whipped across the Midwest of the United States, causing major paths of damage, including, once again, Kentucky, who seems to just keep getting battered over and over again. I have some relatives in Kentucky, second cousins, I believe they are. Anyway, prayers to the folks in the path of these storms and destruction being brought upon by Mother Nature. Very sad indeed. Very sad indeed. And this should really encourage everyone to really count our blessings. I do, multiple times all day throughout the day. Count our blessings and always have a plan. By being prepared as possible, whatever that may look like for you and your world and in your realm. Now, Texas, get ready, friends, in Texas. They say everything's bigger in Texas. Well, guess what's going to be bigger really soon? The floods. And the record-breaking flooding that I see coming to Texas, Florida, And I see floods coming, big storms hitting southern Florida during the summer months, like, say, Miami and just the whole southern parts of Florida. And I also see flooding hitting near Sydney, Australia. And I see flooded French Quarter in New Orleans, which I saw in the past, and not long ago that was in my predictions. But I see a flooded French Quarter in New Orleans, which brings me to another one of my predictions. Spirit told me over the weekend, and I thought this was really interesting. All I heard was we were about to witness a modern-day Katrina. I just kind of look around. Sometimes things just pop in my brain. That was one of those things. Modern-day Katrina. And I just kind of look around like, okay, what's that mean? Exactly. Other than referencing a Hurricane Katrina type of event hitting again. Likely United States, I would imagine. Because, in other countries, there's cyclones and typhoons, and it's funny, they're all the same. They just have a different name. And here it's hurricanes. And Spirit said, modern day Katrina. So what does that mean exactly, modern day? So I took, this as being an intensity kind of thing. Modern day, the storms are much more intense. The earthquakes, everything's much more intense. So that's how I took it when Spirit said modern day Katrina. With the current global, the way the global events are, breaking one record after another. And I would think this is why Spirit refers to it as a modern day Katrina. Let's hope not. And I hope that's not hitting and matching up with my visions of seeing flooded streets in the French Quarter. Could very well be. Now, last week I showed you footage from down under in Australia, in Cattle Land in Queensland, Australia. Now, tragically, more than from major flooding, Queensland was underwater, friends. And now, tragically, at least 140,000 cattle have succumbed to the floodwaters in Queensland, Australia, which puts more strain on Australia and on the world's food supplies. More strain, more cattle going. Remember them all passing from the heat a few years ago? That just popped up in my brain again, and we know that was kind of shady. That was out here, actually. I think it was in Arizona, actually. Remember, a person videotaped it on the side of the road, and they couldn't figure out how it happened? That just popped in my brain. So I'm going to say we're going to see more heat-related cattle passings, perhaps. And we're going to continue to witness these crazy solar, storm systems, dropping buckets of rain and water on areas, bringing more flash flooding and major flooding events. This is going to become a much larger issue with the flooding when we reach the months of July through the month of September. So, we will have this, especially this period of drought and dryness. And when we have this drought and dryness, those areas that are drought and dry-ridden areas, they're going to get dumped on by these heavy storms, and that's going to give water really no place to go quick enough. The ground can't absorb it that quick. And the same is going to go for our friends in the Midwest who are currently enduring all those storms from Illinois to Georgia, Kentucky, all those areas. It's saturated. So if a new storm system heads into that direction, the water ain't going to have nowhere to go, friends. So my friends out there in the Southwest, Midwest, and where all these storms, be prepared. Because there's more to come. Definitely more to come. And a few days have been quiet when it comes to earthquake activity. And even the sun settled down a little bit. Just a little bit. After we were just continuously nailed with sun energies, one after the other, since March 19th. Exactly when Spirit said. Right before equinox. And all the way up to this past weekend, that last geomagnetic storm that we just, drove through over the weekend. And we certainly do need a break from the energies. I'm sure you'll all agree with me on that one. And a break from the crazy weather and earth events. And it will quiet down a bit soon. Not soon enough, but it will. And it will be the quiet before the biggest storms of all come rolling in. Not just storms meaning weather and earth events, but just storms meaning big events hitting the planet. Yeah, and that month of July, can't come and go fast enough, right, friends? Right. Another place that was hit by heavy flooding that I forgot to mention here was the Congo. The Congo was one of those places that I mentioned in past predictions. The Congo, I saw some kind of outbreak coming out of the Congo. And now, as you see in the footage, the Congo is under the water, especially in the lower income areas, in the areas where they struggle the most, or the areas that are getting flooded the most. Interesting how that works out. Wonder why that is. Whereas the ones that aren't in those lower incomes aren't suffering such as severe with the flooding as they are in the Congo, in this part of the Congo anyway. So the floods are breaking out everywhere. I also see major floods coming to India. That just came to the brain. Major floods to India, especially the southern parts of India, according to Spirit. So interesting times, and always important to keep an eye on the sky and on the weather. The next hot topic today, friends, is the greater awakening that is taking place right now, as we see thousands of folks who have now stepped into their power over the past week. And just as Spirit told us they would do so, they took to the streets in protests, with protests just getting larger and larger, spreading out across the globe. In Boston, Massachusetts, it said that at least 100,000 folks came out in protest against the current administration, while the same types of protests were taking place in Texas, Washington, D.C., and the list just keeps going on and on. We even had protests taking place in California. And like I said, the list goes on. And I bet there probably likely was not one state in the United States that wasn't seeing major protests over the past weekend. It was a big deal. And this is people waking up, stepping into their power, getting kind of pissed off and sick and tired of things. That's what happens. So let's see how long it takes before the governments decide to strike back against protesters in some form or another. Could there be a future martial law? Not for that, because these protests are peaceful, thankfully. That makes it even better. When they're peaceful, it's all the better. Really get your point across, Really get your point across. It's the violent ones, like the ones that are burning Teslas and all. They're the ones that are just, they're the ones that are likely receiving some kind of compensation for doing that. Whereas those that are out in peace, that's people stepping into their power. People saying, we need to step up, stand up, and speak up. So I told you that DT was coming in and he was gonna stir things up, and it's all part of this greater awakening. Whether it takes folks, whatever it takes for folks to awaken, that's what's going to happen. Universe is about to serve up and shake up a whole lot, as we see, and we will continue to see, people stepping into their power. While we begin to see others stepping into their emotions, not always a good combination at all, especially when the heat of the summer months gets turned on high. There we go, pointing right back to the summer months. That's when people will plug into their emotions, and that's likely where it will turn into something more sour. Let's hold in the light that doesn't become the case. And we all know we can't depend on mass media, of course. Never. For they all have an agenda, friends. And it's all very, very well scripted, friends. And this is their agenda.
Fortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
See, it's all just one big script when it comes to the media and mass media outlets. And think about this, friends. If we lived in community, like our distant ancestors did, we would be actually completely unplugged from all the global drama that's happening. We would live amongst those that we love and care for, and whatever could be happening outside of our communities, we wouldn't even know. They lived very happily in that form, connected to nature and free from mass media programming and other programming, the education system's programmings. And, again, do your research, look that up. It all started with the Rothschilds and putting all the money into it to program you to be a slave to the system, to the matrix. Think about this, toys. When we were kids, we had toys. I played with the little army men. My cousin played with Barbies. I didn't. I play, we have, little construction trucks, dump trucks, and little construction workers, and You don't really see businessmen or billionaires or anything like that in toys. It's part of the programming. Get you ready. Start you driving off in your little car and playing with your little soldiers so you can grow up and be a soldier or whatever else they're pushing down our kids' throats through their tests. And it's really, really interesting. And we see how it's all just a program. That's why people refer to it as a matrix. Mass media programming. All the more reason, friends. All the more reason to turn off the telly, turn off the computer, put the darn phone down for a little while and get outside and mingle with some of the earth spirits. They're calling you. Perhaps the hottest topic of all hot topics this week is the fact that the WW3 tariff conflict has begun, sending markets, of course, plunging once again to record lows, not just here in the United States. Taiwan has had their worst market since the 1990s. Japan's struggling, and many others are struggling since this past week and these tariffs kicked in. And soon it's going to be a ripple effect. It's going to take place across the globe. Perhaps a plan, an agenda of the globalist? Perhaps. Just a thought. Just some speculation. We like to speculate. Japan again is struggling, and basically everyone has. And this is going to have a ripple effect. And speaking of ripple, cryptocurrencies are also down. And if you recall my 2025 forecast and predictions, I warned that this would be a year where economies would tank. And they're tanking. They're tanking. They're heading towards tanking. So how is this all going to pan out, friends? It eventually is going to lead to good. It might be hard to see that right now, but it will eventually lead to good as long as we all remain resistant to the globalist agenda. And that agenda is to make us all just a digital number. We're already a number by your social security number and such, but they want you to have a digital number in their digital market, this beast global system. I've been telling you about that for years, and all the things I was yelled at being a conspiracy theorist all panned out to be realities. And this is going to be one of those that's going to pan out. Well, is a reality. Hopefully don't pan out the way they want it. We are in that 9 year of endings. I can't continue to remind you that. All the way, to the economies, everything's going, friends. And we only just stepped into the month of April. It's going to be a long road ahead. And the 9 years all about the collapsing. I also stated in the start of 2025 that the markets would be a roller coaster of ups, downs, twists, turns, and that's what's happening. And I totally get the whole tariff thing. I totally do get it. And what the president's attempting to do. Although I feel that maybe, just maybe, there could have likely been better ways to go about it. But it is what it is, and this is how it's playing out and meant to play out. And you may find this to be a complete shock. I did. So I imagine most of you will too. But even Ms. Nancy Pelosi, she knew the United States was getting screwed in many, many fashions, all the way back in the 1990s. Check out this clip from the 90s. I think it's 92, 93, somewhere around there, and listen very, very closely to what Miss Nancy Pelosi has to say about tariffs and how much Americans were getting screwed back then and apparently still are. There you have it. Are you shocked that even Pelosi knew how badly the United States was being taken advantage of? It's truth. So she better not stand up and say anything against what's going on because she was the one that said this back then. They pay us nothing, other countries. Why we pay other countries these high tariffs? It should be balanced, period. I don't know how anybody couldn't agree with that. If you're charging me 25% interest, then you should be agreeable to the reciprocal 25%. And I say that should be a law when it comes to banks and credit cards. If a credit card company is going to charge you 20% interest on your credit card, I feel like there should be a law that they also have to pay you 20% interest on your cash that's in the bank. That's fair. That's balanced the way it should be. Well, tariffs is the same way. It should be balanced. Why should one pay more and one pay less? It's not right. And we are in the Aquarian age of balance, friends. And it seems pretty darn fair to me. I don't know about what others think, but, this is why Trump's decisions are really shaking nations. Really shaking nations and shaking markets. He's got a darn good point. Darn good point. And Nancy Pelosi made that same point back in 1992. But again, there may have been a better way of going about doing this. But there again, maybe not. We're not the one in his seat there making those decisions. And similar tariff conflict events did play out prior to previous world conflicts. Is that where we're heading? Or will peace actually finally prevail and the tariff conflicts bring positive change? Is it in the cards? Well, Spirit tells me that this is a part of the greater awakening. The awakening, in the long run, that's all about fairness. It's all about balance, and it's all about bringing the world together in that balance. Something that certainly is happening on a major scale right now. Something that certainly indicates that we are indeed in the Aquarian age. Overall, the tariffs and this whole tariff thing is going to make other countries desperate. And out of desperation often comes conflict and senseless attacks. China being the most desperate at the moment, according to Spirit, while closely keeping their eyes on Taiwan. And this likely could push China into making a very less than smart decision to attack Taiwan. All to take over that chip and the economy and whatever else is on their brain. And they may actually do this using cyber attacks and cyber technologies and hackers to pose other threats, not just on Taiwan, but on ports, ships, shipping containers, and more. So keep an eye out for that. Keep your eyes open widely once we step into solstice season, especially on June 21st. In accordance to Spirit, every time we go through an equinox and solstice, big things happen. Big shifts happen. That's why our ancient ancestors celebrated them and built monuments to honor the equinoxes and solstices. So keep your eyes open and expect there to be many cyber attacks when it comes to anything that has to do with our shipping of goods and banking systems. And a lot of this is definitely coming out of China. But remember, China is also linked to WEF, the UN, and that whole globalist agenda. Attacks on religion and religious people and religious leaders. Sadly, we've known for a long time that there have been attacks that have been happening against religions, religious structures for thousands of years, come to think of it. But lately, really suppression of attacks on religious groups and leaders. From the Muslim and Christian persecution that's been happening in China, that they keep secret, and all those that disappear or are behind walls over there in China because of their religion. Mainly, again, Christians and Muslims both. And now there's attacks on Christians, mainly Catholics in Latin America and other countries. Makes you truly wonder why there is so much energy of hatred being turned towards an ancient religion. Makes you wonder. At least it should make you wonder. Maybe it's the devil working a whole lot of overtime lately. Nothing would surprise me. And personally, people should be able to believe and practice what they want, as long as it harms no others and as long as they aren't pushing it down other people's throats like some of them do. Part of this greater awakening, that's all about getting folks reconnected to spirituality. And whatever that may look like for you, because it's different for different people. But in this case, moving into the new earth, it's reconnecting to the earth. It's reconnecting to the earth elemental spirits. It's not about rules like religion does. It's not about rules and what you can or can't do or you're going to burn for it. It's about being at peace with yourself. Being at peace with yourself and with your surroundings. Me, I grew up Catholic, rebuked against Catholicism, but I do incorporate Christian practices into my spirituality. You see my little baby Jesus over there, over my left shoulder over there on the counter? And he sits on my sacred altar in my sacred temple space as well. Although mostly I incorporate shamanic practices into my spirituality. Spirituality, again, comes in many forms. Overall, it's all about your connection to the divine, your connection to God, goddess, divine, divine source, whatever you want to refer to it as. It's all the same. Whatever that may even, again, look like for yourself. And our connection to the earth is very, very important, as the Native Americans and the Native Indigenous people have been telling us for decades and generations. That is the most important. That is the direction in which humanity is heading. Now, back to that 9 vibration and this greater awakening that's bringing down structures. We see this happening in the United States with Doge, right? Canceling all kinds of things, canceling people, firing people. That's actually all part of bringing down the systems. And it's not all going to be easy, and some good's going to have to fall with the bad. It's just part of weeding out the systems. That's just an easy example. Just an easy example. Not using that as my full example. Just, save the comments on that one. It's truly, this is what it's all about. It's all part of bringing down the system. So organized churches, especially where corruption's hidden in the shadows, are also going to be called out. We've seen that with even the Vatican and the Catholic Church over the past few decades, with all the sinister things that have come out from the walls of the church. We're going to see a lot more of that. That's part of this collapsing structure. And even with, especially Catholicism, that's been collapsing for quite some time. I know, like, the churches, most of the churches that I went to weddings at and all back east are all closed now. They're all something else. Even the Catholic schools that my friends went to, graduated from, not there anymore. So this is part of these structures collapsing. And then, again, these are just easy examples of explaining how they are. And when they all do, these structures will all collapse. And when they do, a renewal and a rebuild is going to begin afterwards. And remember, I mentioned that there would be coming attacks on religious leaders and church officials, which sadly, this is a reality in northeast Kansas, where a priest was, pow-powed down. Apparently, there's a bunch of attacks on Christians that have been happening, mostly, again, Catholics across the globe. So what's going on? Again, is the devil getting desperate? I think he is, and his fallen angels are getting very, very super desperate, friends. So the story about the priest was behind a paywall, so I can't really share it with you, because it was behind a paywall. But it's really sad regardless, and very unfortunate. And we're going to see more and more of this occurring. And Spirit showed me today a vision, or gave me information, about an abused young man who has now grown old with mental illness and severe abuse from behind the altar of the church. He will seek revenge. Revenge he will claim. I feel this is in the United States. So that was kind of interesting information I received earlier today. And again, I am recording this on Monday. And as a matter of fact, my earthquake video is about to premiere. So I got to finish up here in a moment and get into that chat room. So sadly, we're going to see more and more senseless attacks on religious structures and leaders of churches, or religious organizations, I could say, not just churches, but religious organizations. And I see, as I have told you in the recent past, an attack that's coming, a takeout of a big name church leader, such as Joel Osteen. Spirit shows me a funeral service, which was the first time I had that vision. I knew that there was going to be an attack on a religious leader. But then I had today a vision of the funeral services, and it looked like a big church. Could be Joel Osteen, wouldn't surprise me. And a mugshot of the perpetrator. It looked pretty crazy, actually. Looked like they were probably on drugs or something. And this actually may be coming this month in April. Perhaps could be coming on Easter weekend. Something to keep our eyes out for. In other news, did you hear about the latest around Justin Bieber and Wendy Williams and their connection? Do they have a connection? Kind of all makes sense, actually, when you really look deeply into it. If you know anything about poor old Wendy Williams, who apparently spoke up and spoke out about Oprah and the way that the Big O pimped out little Justin. Interesting enough. Allegedly, we will say. Now look where Wendy Williams is now. They totally destroyed her. Like, really destroyed her. And recently, you may have even seen she tossed a note out the window in New York City with the words help written on it. Real big. Yeah, and then they'll blame it on mental illness. Oh, yeah, she's just not well. She's not well for a reason. They totally destroyed her, I assure you. And she tossed that note out of her car, and she's been drugged through the gutter and back, friends. Drugged through the... And Wendy is a Cancer, by the way. The zodiac sign Cancer. Definitely emotional, like a Cancer. And she is in her 7th personal year. Perhaps she can make a comeback. I doubt it, but the 7 could do that for her. But they don't want her there, so that's where that's where the big holdup is there. And I feel Wendy is not only that her health is deteriorating. That's obvious. And that she's not going to be around much longer. Wendy Williams will pass away, I'd say, between now and late 2026, early 2027 at the latest, but she's sadly on her way out. Now, poor little Bieber, he is a Pisces. Pisces also very emotional, and they hold it all in. You can't get nothing out of them. And we see that this has been taking a huge toll on him and his health and his appearance over the past year. And Spirit shows me him falling, like he's fallen and being held by a very, very small thread. And he happens to be in his 4-year in numerology. So he could make a huge turnaround this year. It's very, very possible. But at the same time, if you don't, he'll be doomed when he steps into next year. Because the health is important and the important focus this year. He may even spend some time in the hospital and likely some time in some type of a rehabilitation center. And he could, again, make a huge turnaround, but at the same time, too many eyes are on him right now. Way too many eyes are on him, and it's not just fans. It's eyes that are on him that are afraid, the eyes of those who fear that he's going to speak up. And I just hope that we don't see him, this ends up putting him into some type of an early grave. It's not looking very good. I also see marriage issues coming up for the Bieber, and I see a separation, potential divorce, and that potential divorce would be filed by his current wife. Now, you may recall my predictions and visions revolved around fires, and big fires that would hit France, specifically, mainly Paris, including my vision of a large fire near the Eiffel Tower. Well, over the weekend, black smoke billowed into the skies as a huge fire in Paris broke out right near the Eiffel Tower. A bit crazy, to say the least, friends. Even crazier, I feel that there is so much more fire that's coming to Paris. I see something huge, like a wildfire burning city blocks. Also, I see fire burning a historic church and a place of worship in Paris. And this particular fire feels separate, and it feels like it's set intentionally by some madman who sneaks into the church to set it ablaze in the late evening hours. So we can, hold in the light that madman is apprehended before striking the match, that historic church in Paris. And now we also have the insane UFO crash and the battle between aliens and the CIA. Friends, I know it sounds bizarre. Bizarre would be an understatement. But this story was leaked in the CIA files. And these CIA files talk about chilling classified file reveals aliens committed revenge massacre after UFO was shot down. A bone-chilling document classified by the CIA has exposed an alleged massacre of aliens from a crashed UFO who turned an entire military unit into stone. Into stone, friends. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like, wasn't it one of those stories from the Bible talks about that? And then we have Medusa turning them to stone. Thought that was really interesting. And of course, the reports say alleged. But it's a CIA document. Is the CIA lying to us? I'll post a link down below if you want to read through these documents yourself. But they are clear documents. And what are they dated? Is there a date on there? Don't quite see a date. But definitely interesting. 23 petrified soldiers could not be saved. Their remains and the debris from the spacecraft were reportedly moved to secret research base near Moscow. Oh, and yes, this all happened allegedly in Russia 80 years ago or something like that. interesting enough. And let us move on as the day is going quick. There was a train heist in Arizona. I just saw that posted somewhere. I didn't grab the article or anything. I just thought that was really interesting. A train heist. We're going to see a lot more heisting going on, friends. A whole lot. We're going to see truckers needing to protect themselves. They already do with shotguns and stuff, depending on what they're carrying on their load. But they're going to need a lot more protection when it comes to the truckers and transporting anything, especially when it comes to goods like electronics or things that are affected by these tariffs. We're going to start hearing about that over the next couple of weeks. Truckers being attacked or trucks being stolen, along with any other forms of transportation and things being moved. So we see the train heist. I don't think that has anything to do with that, but we will see more of this train heist and even a train car disappearing completely. Where'd the train car go? Now, people back in Jersey will know this. Watch the train car, please. But yeah, train car disappears, says the spirits. And speaking of other things coming in the future, new predictions revolved around this coming Easter holiday. It just feels like something really big, very sinister, likely connected to the Middle East. It's coming with Easter weekend. Easter weekend would also be a time where I would tell, well, not that they watch me, but, religious leaders, priests, whatever, to be especially mindful this coming Easter, which is on a weekend, 2 weeks from now. Just be aware. Just Easter felt a little weird and crazy to me. It felt to me more like the globalists, the ones that worship their dark god. We're going to use Easter this year as like almost like a sacrificial date of some sort. I hope not, and I hope I'm wrong. Another thing that keeps coming to me lately is the Bush family. George Bush, old man Bush to be exact. We all know about the Bushes and the Bush family and the crime family that's revolved, associated with the whole Clinton crime family. Something big's coming out around the Bush family. That's all I got. I don't know what. Don't know what it's revolved around, but we know, first of all, that old man Bush was the head of the CIA when JFK was taken down. And, was caught lying when he said he wasn't in Texas when it happened. And then they found out not that long ago, a few years back, that they found that he was there where he said he wasn't. So a lie there. We know all about Baby Bush and the whole thing that happened in New York in 2001. So we just know they're just not good people. And, the 18-year-long battle with Afghanistan and Iraq that they drug us into. And the list goes on and on. But something's coming up around the Bush family. And man, we could only hope that they would be indicted for their crimes, but I doubt that's ever going to happen. We can hold it in the light. But hey, truth comes out first. That's the first thing that people are awakening is the truth. And that's another big thing that we're going to be seeing is lots of truths. I told you about the modern day Katrina. That's in my notes. I also see an attack on both American and French military bases. And I had visions of boom booms being dropped from planes around these military bases and even embassies. American, French, and German embassies, says the spirits. And then over the weekend, I don't know if I told you this last week, but it was really weird. I just heard, that song, Don't Drop the Bomb on Me, Baby. Out of nowhere, I just heard, Don't Drop the Bomb on Me, Putin. Don't drop the bomb on me. It was really weird and bizarre. Another thing I want to put out there before we end today's show is the Q&A. I have some questions that are in my notes that people have left. If you have questions that relate, the letter Q, 2 dots, and your question in the comments below, not in the live chat. And I'm going to leave you with that for this episode. I will be working on special meditations over the next week for more predictions and even channeled predictions that I will be putting out. Also, probably not this week, but next week. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're new and you want accurate predictions, prophecy, and truth, and you want to vibe with the tribe, and you're still here, then you're already vibing with the tribe. So smash that subscribe, and we welcome you with open air hugs. Thanks to all the supporters who make this free content possible for everybody else. I appreciate you with infinite love and gratitude. And thanks to the contributions, and don't forget to check the links down below and sign up for that newsletter. It's free. Until the next time, friends, remember, be bold, be true, be kind, be you. Let your light shine ever so brightly. And have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste. Much love, friends. Much love.